I got a notification on my phone this morning at 9 o'clock from a colleague in Taipei. China launched Justice Mission. This time it's different. I immediately opened the map, and what I saw froze me in place. 5 separate zones around Taiwan, each marked in red. China's Eastern Theater Command had issued an official statement. Major military drills, port blockade, control of critical areas. But what shocked me wasn't the statement itself. What shocked me was a phrase they'd never used before: to deter external interference. And that's when I understood. This wasn't just a message to Taiwan. This was a direct threat to the US and Japan. Let me tell you something. China has conducted dozens of military exercises around Taiwan over the last 15 years. They did them in 2022 when Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan. In 2023, there were missile launches. 2024 saw similar drills repeated. But this is different, because this time China is saying explicitly for the first time, we're preparing to block external forces. What does this mean? Simple. If China attacks Taiwan, the US 7th Fleet will try to intervene. And China's strategy is this: don't let them get close to the island. In military terminology, this is called anti-access area denial, a 2/AD. In plain English, block access, deny the area. And right now, China is testing exactly that. I looked at the map again. 5 zones, each strategically positioned. North, the entrance to the Taiwan Strait. This is the first point US ships would come through. Southwest, the Bashi Channel. This is the passage from the South China Sea to the Pacific. East, direction of the Miyako Strait. This is the aid route that would come through Japan. And right in the middle, Taiwan's main ports: Kaohsiung, Keelung, Taichung. When I saw this map, I realized something. China isn't just encircling Taiwan. China is keeping out everyone who would help Taiwan. Let me explain the scale of this exercise. The People's Liberation Army, ground, naval, air, and rocket forces, all mobilized. The Eastern Theater Command, China's main unit responsible for Taiwan operations. And right now, this unit is operating at full capacity. How many troops? China isn't saying, but analysts estimate at least 20,000 to 30,000 personnel, dozens of ships, hundreds of aircraft, ballistic missile systems. And tomorrow, December 30th, live fire drills begin. What does live fire mean? Real ammunition, real missiles, real targets. This isn't a rehearsal. This is a dress rehearsal. I learned from my sources that this exercise's focal point is simulating port blockades. Taiwan has 3 main ports: Kaohsiung in the south, Keelung in the north, Taichung in the west. These ports handle 90% of Taiwan's trade with the outside world. If China blocks these ports, Taiwan becomes isolated. Food imports cut off, energy imports stop. Taiwan is completely dependent on imports for oil and natural gas. And the math is very simple. Taiwan has 23 million people. If the ports close, the island enters crisis within 3 to 4 weeks. But that's not the real issue. The real issue is this: if the US tries to intervene, can China stop them? Let me explain the US-Taiwan intervention plan. The US 7th Fleet is currently stationed in Japan at Yokosuka Base. If Taiwan comes under attack, the 7th Fleet kicks in. Aircraft carriers, destroyers, submarines. But here's the problem. The distance from Japan to Taiwan is about 2,000 kilometers. It takes an aircraft carrier battle group 48 to 72 hours to get there. And China's strategy kicks in precisely during this window. Because look, China knows that if US ships reach Taiwan waters, the crisis escalates. But if China can stop US ships at 500 to 1,000 kilometers distance from Taiwan, the war risk decreases because the two sides haven't directly clashed. And this is where anti-access area denial comes into play. Let me explain how A2/AD works. First level, long-range missiles. China's DF-21D and DF-26 missiles, known as carrier killers, range 1,500 to 4,000 kilometers. Target US aircraft carriers. Second level, submarines. China's Type 093 nuclear submarines are quiet, fast, deadly. Mission, torpedo US ships. Third level, air defense. China's shore-based HQ-9 systems, similar to S-400. Mission, shoot down US aircraft. Fourth level, anti-ship cruise missiles. Hundreds of them, all locked on US ships. And now, in this exercise, China is testing all these systems together. I read a Pentagon report published in 2024, title, Taiwan Scenario, US Intervention Analysis. The report said, if China attacks Taiwan, the US has a 72 to 96-hour window to intervene. Within this window, US ships can reach Taiwan waters. But if China successfully implements a 2/AD strategy, US ships may be forced to stay at 500 to 1,000 kilometer distance. And the report added, from this distance, effective US military assistance to Taiwan is very difficult. When I read this report, I asked a question. Did China read the same report? Answer, yes. And now they're testing it in real life. But let me tell you something else. The timing of this exercise isn't coincidental. Because look, 10 days ago, December 19th, the US approved a new arms sale package to Taiwan. Value, $3+ billion. Contents, F-16 spare parts, radar systems, missile components. China sees this as a red line, and now China is responding. But the response isn't a diplomatic note. The response is a military exercise. The message is clear. If you send weapons to Taiwan, we blockade the island. Let me read you a sentence from China's official statement. This exercise is a serious warning to separatist forces and aims to deter external interference. Separatist forces equals Taiwan government. External interference equals US and Japan. This sentence is the essence of China's strategy. Leave Taiwan alone. No help from outside. And I ask myself, if a real war starts, will this strategy work? Let me give you a scenario. Tomorrow, China attacks Taiwan. In the first 6 hours, Chinese missiles hit Taiwan's air defense systems. Radars, missile batteries, command centers, all destroyed. Then, Chinese naval forces blockade Taiwan's ports. No ships can enter or exit. Simultaneously, Chinese air forces control Taiwan airspace. Taiwan's F-16s take off, but numbers are insufficient. 6 hours later, Taiwan's president calls the US, help us. Washington mobilizes. The 7th Fleet sets sail. 48 hours later, US ships are 800 kilometers from Taiwan, but China's DF-21D missiles lock onto them. China warns, don't come closer. What does the US do? Advance or stop? If it advances and China launches missiles, what happens? If a US ship sinks, does this trigger NATO Article 5? Does it become World War? As I finished this analysis, I asked myself a question. Why is China doing this exercise now? And the answer came very clearly. Because China thinks 2025 is a critical year. Trump's second term. US-China relations tense. Taiwan elections happened in 2024. The independence-leaning party won. And China thinks, if I don't act now, Taiwan will grow stronger. So this isn't just an exercise. This is preparation. And let me tell you this, tomorrow, December 30th, live fire drills begin. Real missiles, real targets in Taiwan waters, and the world will watch. Because if a missile accidentally hits Taiwan territory, what happens? If a Chinese ship accidentally gets too close to a US ship, what happens? Sometimes wars don't start with planned attacks. Sometimes they start with a mistake, an accident. And right now in the Taiwan Strait, the risk of mistake is higher than ever. As I was writing this report, an old Pentagon colleague sent me a message. Is this being taken seriously? I replied, I hope so. Because look, this isn't just a China-Taiwan issue. This is the 21st century's biggest geopolitical question. Can China take Taiwan? And can the US stop it? We might find out the answer very soon. And let me tell you this, in the next video, I'll explain the US-Taiwan defense plan. Because if China blockades, what does the US have? And is it enough? Get ready.